video blog, day 2 of TPE down.
Yay! Placement Exchange 2018. Let's go.
Debrief.
Yes. How do you feel about your day or our day? It's a really long day. We started off, both of us has something at 9, don't we? And right now it's 9 p.m.
12 hours.
12 hours day.
So it's a marathon. And another marathon tomorrow.
That's for sure. So, briefly what the day looks like, basically, you have a bunch of interviews, made by the employers who want to talk to you. Either that's like a 30 minutes to an hour, and then, you're able to insert some of the free time, break time that you can self-input onto the schedule. And so for me, it looks like break, interview, break, interview, break, interview, break, interview, like this, from 9 until 7 p.m. So
yeah, for me, I didn't have as many interviews just because I was a little bit more picky around my type of institution and my geographic location, but I still definitely put those breaks in. I also put some specific time in there to prep for my interviews that wasn't just a break, so also have work time in there as well. And it's really nice that TPE does provide a gigantic room for all of the candidates to work. So it's the workroom, and there's printing, and there's always individuals from the candidate development committee in there. And so that was a really nice resource to have as well.
Yeah, no, TPE, they have everything from like women's product to a piece of
lint
gum,
rollers, and ibuprofen, and you spilled something on your shirt, you can get it out.
Yeah, pens, the Goo Gone,
yeah.
like they literally have everything for you. And printing is free, I think, right? It's really neat. They have like a quiet space. So aside from the candidate's workroom, the candidate mailbox, the best.
The mail system at TPE
like
is
Hogwarts.
very interesting.
Just kidding.
It's definitely snail mail based, which I really appreciate in an era of technology. But there's also a way that you can send your resumes to schools that you haven't applied to yet if you're interested. And they also, the schools communicate with you and you communicate with the schools by little slips of paper that can be thank you notes to schools that you've already interviewed with, or it can also be just from a school to you saying welcome and give you chocolate or a little trinket or something else that makes you remember them and kind of gets you excited for the interview and for the weekend.
There's a lot of snacks for sure. I feel like everybody, it's like, oh, pack your snack, or you don't have to because you're getting all the sweets. You're on sugar high.
The whole timer that's like chocolate or popcorn, yes. Local chocolate, local foods, local treats from wherever the university is.
So we've been here 2 days. Yesterday was more of like orientation. We only had like a couple because it didn't start until later later in the day. So, some people have like 1 or 2, things like that. It's like a teaser for today's the big day. I think the busiest day for everybody as well. But so far, what you've learned or what you want to pass along to, other people?
I think being authentic is the most important thing. All of my interviews that I scheduled for TPE beforehand were first round interviews. So I didn't do any phone interviews beforehand with any of the schools I talked to today. And I think that authenticity that comes through, if the first time you meet me is in person at TPE, then being authentic, I think, was a really good strategy for me, and should be a good strategy for anyone, but just specifically me to make sure that I'm communicating who I actually am to the employers, but 2, it also really helped with nerves. I wasn't worried about making sure to speak about everything I had on my resume, or speak about this thing that I've done, or this program that I implemented. It was more of who I am and what kinds of things do I do in my work because of who I am. So that was something that I learned, I think, and just keep going with it, that I'm going to be myself, and part of that is being a little bit goofy and laughing and making a joke during the interview. So also just to stay calm, everything's gonna be okay.
I give them a countdown to graduation. I was like, every time I start, it's like 70 days. I'm not counting, someone's counting, and then they laugh. And so I think for sure. So I have some previous interviews before coming where that's like a phone or a Skype. And so coming here, there are a couple where I have had first round interview with them. So this is my second round, which I think it is really nice to get to see people who you just been emailing and, you know, on the phone. You're like, oh, you're in person. That is really
Putting
nice
names
to
to
meet
faces.
you. Yeah.
Nice.
And so I think other than being authentic, I was thinking about this along like today really of like, whatever I'm saying, I better be doing this when I get the job.
It's true.
And so I'm not making things up of like, this is who I am, this is how I implement, but when it come to real life, that's not what I do. So I think it's really, you know, make sure that you reflect on what you do, what you actually want to implement and have passion on. Because I think some, you know, supervisor or someone have told us of, you know, they would expect what they see at the interview to be the person that they bring on to campus and onto their team.
Yeah.
And so, you know, every time that I'm saying things, I'm like pulling from experience. And so that's, you know, expressing my authentic self, but then having some data supporting it, some factual things supporting that. But yeah, and I think what I learned is that 30 minutes and an hour interview, like you can really pace yourself. And I have an interview where it's in 1 hour and they ask me 12 questions versus one, they only ask me 4. And then we use 35 more, the rest of the 35 minutes to like me asking them questions. So I was glad that I have questions prepared and be able to do more like a conversation instead of like shoot questions to them and then I'll be done in like 5 minutes. So
I mean, the interviews are conducted in a massive exhibit hall that probably holds thousands of, maybe even 10,000 people. Each of the interview areas are kind of segmented off, and so there might be like 30 tables like 30 tables where 2 people sit for an interview, interviewing one person. So 30 tables in this candidate's or the interview space that's curtained off, and then there are multiple replications of that all throughout the exhibit hall. And so, I mean, you can have thousands of interviews going on at the exact same time. And since the the curtains are up as walls, you really only see like 25, 30 other people, maybe even less than that depending on the time, but it's not as intimidating that way. But the interview waiting area that Yuan was saying, that there are these 4 blocks they have the curtains around them, and they have chairs, and like water and things like that. And they're in the middle of the exhibit hall. So you make your way from the candidate room where you could work, and then you go up to the exhibit hall and you find your way to the middle, and they're sorted by your last name. So I've just sat in the A through L one every single time I had an interview.
No, you're
and then
in G to L.
I'm in G to L?
Yeah.
I'm in G to L.
Because I go visit them all the time, that's why.
See,
I know,
12-hour day,
visit.
right? Okay, G to L, just kidding.
I look every time like, where is everybody?
Right. Well, okay, so I'm not in now. I'm in G to L. But I go in there, sit, and then the candidates will be picked up by the people who are interviewing them. And it's actually really fun to see what the interviewers do when they come to pick you up. A lot of them have signs.
Hey, we're this university.
Yeah, really, they'll have signs.
Go banana.
They'll write your name on a marker board, or they'll have a pennant. A lot of them have pennants or flags. Some of them have like stuffed animals that they'll bring.
Some people wear like their ears. You know, I don't know what that was. Sue
I
has
saw
an ear
them,
happening. It was so cute.
Yeah. So, and they kind of show their personality of the institution and the people interviewing you through how they pick you up. So then they take you back to one of those little areas that are curtained off, and then you have an interview with 2 professional staff members of that institution. So the institutions could have multiple tables, especially some of the larger institutions, depending on how many positions that they are that they are trying to find candidates for, can have like 5 or 6 or 8 tables. Depending on how many people they bring to interview. But it's nice having just that 2-on-1 conversation, and it's not a group of 6 people on a Skype call trying to talk to you about, you know, their institution.
Yeah. If you have a 30 minutes gap before, you know, between the interview, you personally, do you like waiting in the candidate waiting room, working there, or what is your, like, what do you do? Because, like, personally, I like, if I only have 30 minutes, I like to just sit there. I find go in and actually made some friends. Well, actually, I have some friends who I knew, you know, who are in the room as well. And so, you know, we just like debrief. But then I enjoy working in that. I think it's pretty quiet and people are, you know, ready, just because sometimes the people, the institution would come 5 or 10 minutes beforehand. Some might come a little later and whatnot. So I like to be prepared. So I like staying in there and just like go through my notes for the next one. I think 30 minutes, it seems pretty short, but I think it was enough time going from one interview to the next one.
To switch gears and to have your mindset into the next institution that you're applying for. Yeah, I'm the same. I had a couple 30-minute interviews that had 30 minutes in between each of them. So I just went ahead and stayed in the exhibit hall in the waiting room or in the waiting area to be able to prep for my next interview. Meant that I had to have the materials with me for that next interview. But I think it was good. And then the candidate workroom isn't far away, but it's not close. For us, it was like down the escalator and around the corner. So if you had, up to an hour or more in between interviews, then it's definitely enough time to go down, find the candidate room, and be able to hang out there.
How do you organize your stuff?
I had folders. So I have folders for file folders for each institution that I'm applying for and interviewing with. After reflecting on it, instead of using like the file folders that open long ways, I probably should have got folders that have pockets that open this way. Because because a lot of the times the interviewers will send you thank you notes after you interview, or they'll send you little cards that have reminders of when your interview is, and they can send little cards that are information about their institution or their department that you can look at in order to prep for your interview. And so they're not 8.5 by 11 all the time, and so having that open folder with pockets for each institution, I think would have been really helpful. But it definitely still works.
So that's what we did, both of us did, when we prep, right? And so I kind of staple it just so it doesn't like fall off at the same time.
That's a good idea. See, I should have stapled.
So I just like have things on here and have the whys for sure, like why I wanted this institution right on the card. But some institution, we're just gonna use the University of Dayton because we're grad school.
Yay!
So hi, some school would give you swag, and I ended up switching things over and just use their folder just to show that like school spirit and stuff like that. But you think that moving forward, if like you have the chance, you would do it this way?
Yeah, I think so.
It really is easier.
And with business, and a lot of the institutions will give you their business cards, and I highly recommend asking for them if you don't have. I mean, if they don't give them to you right away, because thank you notes are a very encouraged activity for TPE, kind of help you stand out, help you also remember those institutions, those people who interviewed you, and you want to be able to put those names of the people you interviewed on your card, and if you, in a frenzy like I did today, I forgot to write down on my notes who I was interviewing with because they didn't give me their cards, and I'm awful with names, and so I had to scour LinkedIn and had to scour the website to be able to find it. Thank goodness they actually sent me a thank you card first, so I opened it, saw that it was the two people's names, and was like, whew. So I was able to write a thank you note back and say, oh, thank you for my interview, here's to Ben and Susie, so that it's more personalized. So getting those business cards, and also writing on the business cards, I put like first round TPE on the back of some of the business cards, so that I could keep them for later, and in the event that I didn't get an on-campus or didn't contact them further, then at conferences down the road, or if I have a job opening there in the future, then I can reference those and say, oh yeah, I met them during my interview in my first round at TPE.
No, that's actually good. I think I did that for the reception that I had one today. I ended up writing on the back of the things that we connected with.
Yeah, and what you connected about too. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Any tips on interview? On like
everyone else is nervous. The candidates are nervous. The interviewers are, even if they're not, they might be nervous depending. I mean, if they're like first year professionals and it's their first time interviewing at TPE, they're probably nervous. Even the seasoned professionals, if they're not nervous, they're probably tired halfway through the day. I had an interview today it was almost a dud. Like, I had some good answers to some of the questions, and I could tell that they were, nodding and like engaging, but it was like dead face. They were like, yeah, okay, and so just because they were tired and they had already done probably 10 to 15 interviews earlier before me, and it was right after lunch. So of course they're, full from lunch. So, and I ended up getting a second round interview for that institution. So, understanding that it's a fatigue, but it's also something that you have adrenaline around because you're excited to get a job, and so it's that balance of you will be really tired, but you'll be able to make it through because of all the excitement and the stimulus of the whole experience.
Yeah, I think for sure, like, expression itself, doesn't equate to, them, because I have some of mine too who are just either, like, yawning or like looking, right, because we're in a big meeting exhibit room, and so when there are noises, people just, like, look away or things like that, and so, but that doesn't translate in that, you're doing a poor job or whatnot, and there will be some people who are just like really good at, making eye contact, smiling all the time, but it's just personality as well, right? And then the time of the day, I'm sure that plays a role. So,
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you had many more interviews than I did today, and some of them were second round, some of them were first round. But so as far as your interaction with the institutions, with the people, what kinds of things stood out to you that an institution talked about or an institution did that might have not been like the same for every interview or follow the same strategic protocol?
I think there was one that stood out to me in a way that that whole introduction. So they said that their institution pride themselves on getting to know the people beyond their name. So they really wanted to learn about the people's story and experience, and they actually started off by both of them telling their story more than just this is my name, this is my job position, this is the area that I oversee, tell us about you kind of thing. It's like
cool.
Yeah, they tell the whole story of, their undergrad, like where they're from, undergrad year, their transition to this position, what they have done, their family life and things like that. And I'm like, okay. So it takes a while. So I'm like, thinking about time. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is what you values, and you're implementing it in the interview room.
Yeah.
And you're allowing me to do it. And, you role modeling it. I was like, oh, that is cool. So I could really see, how they really put what their values into action, and so then they in turn allow me to tell my story, and I was able to be more, I guess, be able to dig deeper into where I come from and like my walk and things like that. I was able to share, I feel like I share more things with them than I have shared with other people when they just said introduce yourself.
Well, I mean, especially if they prompt it and they role model that for you, then that makes sense, and that's indicative of maybe how their department works. I mean, they're they say that they do that, but then actually doing it is a big thing. So one of the institutions, and I don't know if it's because I'm have all the preferred qualifications for this institution, so I'm almost overqualified for it, but at the same time it's in an area and I really like the institution, so that's context. But they tried to sell me on the institution in the first round. So before they even started, they said, okay, we're going to introduce ourselves, I'm going to talk about the institution itself to give you some more context and our history, and then a partner here is going to tell you more about the position and more what we're looking for, and it was all through the spin of we're in a great location, the professional staff really loves where we are, they're bonded together, they connect with the students, and then their partner said that we're really looking for someone who's energized, and we see that you're very energized from your resume, and it was really nice, talking with you on the walk over here, which was, all 45 seconds, so I guess I made a good impression, but I mean, but that dynamic was very different, because a lot of the other interviews started off with, well, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then into the questions, where this particular institution wanted to sell me on it first, and in the end of the interview, when I had the opportunity to ask questions, I definitely drilled them about like, oh, I see you have 6 positions open in your department. What does that mean? And they were very transparent and understanding. So I could tell that them trying to sell me the institution at the top wasn't to make up for anything that was maybe negative or not going right in their department. It was just they really wanted me or really want their candidates to come to that institution. So I thought that was interesting, and it wasn't something that I was expecting. I was not expecting at all. I mean, I was expecting to be interviewed and then I asked questions. I wasn't expected to try to be pulled in, and it ended up being a positive thing, and I got a second round with them, and I'm really, really happy with it. So
for sure.
Yeah.
But any last minute thought?
I'm just ready for tomorrow. I mean, we both have 9 a.m.s tomorrow, so
Yeah.
and I have most of my second rounds tomorrow, so that'll be interesting because it'll be a little different. I know Yuana's had some, and second rounds traditionally more conversational, talk a little bit about more depth instead of breadth around your experience. So I think I'm much better at that than just answering questions point blank and just having a conversation and being able to facilitate it. So I'm pretty excited.
I know, me too. We shall see. Well, it looks like, and this would end on Saturday, March 3rd.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, today's first, tomorrow second.
NASPA right after.
And then NASPA, so your conference gals.
Bye!